So you just got your laser and you want to do finger joints, but you may have discovered a app online called Boxes.py, which is a fantastic app. One of the issues that we run into by default is that we have these loops and corners that end up showing up on our files whenever they're generated. So today I'm going to go over how to get rid of these because you're probably backed into a corner right now and you don't have the original file, and now you kind of just have to get rid of this stuff on your own. Um, but there are a few easy ways to get around this, so let me help you out. And another thing is that it might be holding you back from one of the key features that come native with Lightburn. All right, I'm not baiting you into sticking around until the end for me to give you the answer. We're getting the answer right now. If you want to get rid of those corners and those loops, when you're inside of boxes.py, say in my case, this is a type tray, go down to the default settings, go to the inner corners, and select corner. And this burn is the radius that's on the outside edge of that top tab. Put that to 0, and it grays it out, so it'll probably throw you off a little bit. But just put that to 0, and then download the SVG, and then we'll drag that in. Let's move this out of the way a little bit, and we'll change that to our cutting line. But you zoom in, and you don't have the radius, and you don't have the radius, and then you don't have the loop. So now you should be able to select your geometry. Notice that this is grouped, by the way. Go ahead and get that ungrouped by Control U, and now it's just this outer box that we've had selected. So click on that, and then you'll go to Tools, go to Resize Slot Selection. Should be able to select through and see what can be altered. And we just have this as a tolerance of 1. That way we make sure that we're within range and getting everything we need. But these were probably much smaller. See? If you don't see them, then just adjust the old material thickness, which is what it currently is, and then what you want it to go to. Say that this material thickness is much higher. And here's I wouldn't necessarily call it a pro tip, but you usually want to go by the tab height. Keep your inside reference point, because that's typically where the material is going to mesh up. So instead, if you wanted to go from this 3mm material, which I believe that's what it was in our settings, and you wanted to go to, say, 5.3, click apply, and it increases the height on those. You also may be tempted to use that tab adjustment in Lightburn on this raw file, but if you take a look, you'll see that there are these sections here in the middle that Boxes.py has generated. What you'll have to do is delete each one of those little nodes, but I'll show you, just for example, I'm going to delete a couple of these and just have these two sets as comparison. So if we select all of them, this is altered, this is not, and you go into your tools and resize the slots, the only thing you'll end up seeing is that the tab height will be able to be adjusted only on this set over here. But don't let that fool you. See, this here is showing the slot width. This is how you want that to be adjusted. So first make the alteration and then use slot width. That way it goes off the center line of your material. So we apply that. You can of course do that to the other ones. Now if you're still with me and you want to try and alter an existing file that you've made, let's so say you have a design and you don't really want to fool around with altering it and things like that, or maybe you forgot your settings that you had in Boxes.py or any other generator, and you have those loops and you have the radiuses. You might think that you're stuck, but what you can do is use your offset tool, and then remember that you have to ungroup. So we did Control U. Now we're ungrouped. We just see the marching ants on the exterior geometry. Now let's click on offset, make a really small number, and I typically work in millimeters just because it seems to be a little bit easier for me mentally. But let's do a 0.1 offset. We'll do a corner. We're going to delete the original object that we have selected. And let's zoom in some more. Maybe you can see it. And it might boot your number because it's real small, but just type that in there again. And this number is so small, it's not going to matter to you. So this is the way it shows up, and it offsets inward into your slots. So let's back out a little bit, and then let's go up here. And what it does is it turns this into faceted corners. And I'll show you how to get rid of those in just a second with node editing. So let's click OK. It deleted our old geometry and then deleted our loops for our entire model right here. So what I do is I create first a reference line. That way I can stick to my old lines. Right click to unselect it. Just go somewhere in the center here, make sure it's on that line, hold shift and it will snap. Click there, right click, click again, shift, select, right click again, click here, shift, right click again. And now we have a reference line, and you can probably paint these orange just to put them as a tooling reference and have a little bit of contrast. We'll go back to our outer geometry, click node editing, go down here, and we will surround. So upper left corner, scroll out while still holding the left mouse, and then release, and you'll notice that all of these nodes right here have been selected. Now don't press delete, otherwise it'll delete the entire line. What you do is you press D, and D will get rid of those lines for you. And then what you can do is surround those again and take one of these nodes, left click down and hold shift. That way it gives you a snapping point for a direction, and then scroll down to that line. And now all of your lines match up with your original depth of your tabs. And now those have been altered. We should be able to delete our reference lines now, if you like them, or I just like to get some of the stuff out of the way. But now we can select our outer geometry, now that we have our straight corners and everything's set to where it should be. Go to Tools, go to Resize Slot in Selection, find out what your size was, So you can make your adjustment to what you need. Whether you need to do slot depth, slot width, or your tab height, which typically I'm adjusting the tab height in at least my situation with this T light. Say you just wanted that to be 5.3 millimeters. Apply and say OK. And now your height has been adjusted. Now, if you're still having issues and you notice that you've ungrouped your geometry and things like that, what you may not realize is that you have open geometry. So if we click on this here, we don't have all of this is closed geometry. So if we grab our little corner slot here, that's going to drag both of those lines. And now if we select this other one over here, even though it looks like it's closed, see this is a slightly darker green. If we zoom in, those aren't actually connected. So it's not going to be able to tell. You have to have closed geometry. So what we can easily do now that we're in node editing, just drag it over, make sure you get your cross, and then now that light green you should be connected. So I can drag that around, it's all one single entity. Control Z to get it back in its spot, and I can now adjust to resize the slot. But one thing you want to be careful of is, say we come over here and we adjust our slot width here, just slot width. What it'll do is it'll go from both of these directions. And maybe we don't want to do that, right? So if we apply that, that's going to end up making that slot that much bigger. Notice that the tab height doesn't work and the slot depth doesn't work. So this is specifically for slots that are closed rectangle geometries. So instead of doing that, we'll Control Z, go back to what we had. And if you wanted to increase the material thickness but keep this inside dimension here, so if we look up here, we show that our internal cross section is 63.9 millimeters. So it's just right here, right? 63.9 millimeters. That cross section correlates with this section here. So we need to make sure that that stays true to that inner wall on these finger joints and on this T-light. So instead, let's go surround this. Notice that if you have your orientation, so up here in this box, depending on which one of these reference areas, that is what side that is going to lock and push the extra dimension that you have whenever you go to adjust this. So let's say we want to adjust the width only to the left to make it away from the center here. We want to keep the center true. So if we were to select this left side, it anchors this side, right? So if we go to width, select up, oh no, that's going the wrong way, right? So click the opposite side of that, and that increases the material. And if you wanted to, 5.3 was our number. Boom, that's where we want to be. So all those are adjusted there. We can go to the other side. Make sure you select your other reference. We'll go 5.3, and then here, click the bottom side. Our height dimension this time, because it's not our width, 5.3, and then the bottom side, we're going to select the top, that way it locks this line, and then 5.3. There you go, now you're adjusted for that 5 millimeter thickness. And I just want to thank you again for stopping by, hanging out, and checking out this tutorial. I plan on making plenty more Lightburn videos in the future. If you have any suggestions on stuff that might be a little confusing or you got questions on things, feel free to reach out. If you'd like to check out our Etsy or our Facebook, I'll leave that, of course, down in the description. And this just happens to be one of the tea lights that designed a while back, and of course I'm just making adjustments to it, and then I'll eventually end up listing it, probably a couple different designs and things like that. But I just noticed today that I want my files to have the ability for customers to readjust this to different sizes on the fly, and I've seen a lot of people create tons of different variations, but it's real easy to make these adjustments. So hopefully this will empower a few folks to, not hold off on buying some of those files that are out there that you're not sure if it'll work with your material. It's relatively easy to get these finger joints to work. So, you know, good luck to you all, and just yeah, ask any questions down in the comments and let me know if you need some help.